Hey guys, I'm going to use this video to kind of go over the best possible answers for each of the book assignments that we had assigned a couple weeks ago. This is just going to be over assignment 1, questions 1 through 8, because I'm still waiting on responses from some students on the other two. But here we go. So list 3 abiotic factors in the environment of a fish was our first question. So things to think about on this question. Abiotic factors have got to be things that are not alive. Okay, so for a fish, you got to think of anything that's not alive that could affect a fish. So they definitely need water. So water would be one, or you could take that and go even further. You could say things like the temperature of the water, the oxygen dissolved in the water, the other nutrients in the water, right? Carbon dioxide in the water, anything that's not living that's part of the water. Or you could say the sunshine entering the water, or the current, the flow of the water, right? So all of those things are not alive, but they would all still very much affect a fish. Second one, list 3 biotic factors in the environment of a songbird. So now we're thinking things in an ecosystem that are alive that might affect a songbird. So if I'm a songbird, you know, I've got to have food, so things like seeds and nuts in the plants that produce them, worms in the ground that might be my food, things that are trying to hunt me, right? So maybe foxes and coyotes and things that might be happy to snatch up a songbird. The trees that I live in, right? So all of those things are alive and would definitely be affecting a songbird. Third one, how do an ecosystem, a population, and a community differ? And I'm actually talking about them in a different order. I want to talk about this one first. Remember, a population is one species. Okay, so if I was talking about my backyard, you know, I have a certain population of trees, a population, you know, and I could, you know, probably should be more specific. I have a population of juniper trees. I think they're juniper trees. So you want to be species specific. If I was talking about the community, that's all the living things. So all of the trees, all of the grass, all of the worms and insects and cats that sometimes trample through my yard would be the community. And then the ecosystem is all of the stuff that I included in the community, all the living things, but also throw in the non-living things, the temperature, the water, the dirt, the wind, the storms, all of the things make up the ecosystem. So this is one species, population, all the species in a community, and an ecosystem is the community plus the things that are not alive. All right, so our next questions, make sure I don't click anything here when I put my book there. Describe 2 ways decomposers differ from herbivores. I was pretty generous on this question when I was grading, saying one way that they're different. Like a lot of you said, decomposers feed on decaying matter and herbivores eat plants. That's really one way they're different. They're different in what they eat, right? So you kind of got to think. So decomposers, yes, feed on decaying matter. Herbivores feed on plants. That's one way that they're different. Another way that they're different is you could talk about decomposers return nutrients to the soil and herbivores don't do that. So that would be another way that they're different. 5, name an organism that occupies each of the following trophic levels. I had a couple people try to find an organism that filled every single one of these, which was kind of interesting. But really you just needed to come up with an example. So producer trophic level, you could have just named any plant, would have been in that level. Second trophic level, anything that eats plants, right? Any autotroph, rabbits and grasshoppers and cows and deer. Third trophic level would be things that eat those kinds of things. So things that eat meat, like cats and foxes and coyotes and all of those kinds of things. How does each of the following organisms satisfy its energy needs? Decomposer feeds on dead material. Plants gets energy from the sun. Herbivores eat plants. Omnivores eat plants and animals, and carnivores hunt and eat meat. So we did pretty well on that one. There are 2 more from this assignment here. What is the second law of thermodynamics? So the second law of thermodynamics is, hold on a second. Sorry about that. Second law of thermodynamics is this idea that yes, we can transform energy, we can take energy from one thing to another, but in doing so, we are going to be releasing energy as heat, as kind of a waste byproduct. And why is that important to understand energy relationships in ecosystems? When we have a plant get eaten by an herbivore, 90% of the energy that it takes in from that plant is going to be lost as heat. Okay, so that's from all the chemical reactions that take place, all of the friction going on. And so this idea that only 10% of the energy goes to the next level explains a lot of things, and it's kind of demonstrated in this diagram up here. So we have all the energy coming in from the sun. Oh, you can't quite see that. And so this is available to all the producers. Okay, and then 90% of that energy is lost as heat. 10% can go to the herbivores. And then when the herbivores get eaten, 90% of their energy is lost as heat. And then 10% goes on to the carnivores. And then if a carnivore, is eaten by another carnivore, 90% of their energy is lost as heat, 10% goes to the next level. So the second law of thermodynamics is just like, yeah, we can pass energy on, but we're going to lose a bunch of it and create heat. And that kind of goes into question number 8. Why is the biomass of the herbivore trophic level larger than the biomass of the carnivore trophic level? You can think of this a bunch of ways, but if I kind of think about it, if I had enough, I always like the rabbits and foxes because people are familiar with those, but if I had a field with the same amount of mass in rabbits as I have in foxes, okay, imagine you let that go on for a couple weeks. Those foxes are each going to eat 2 or 3 rabbits. That's going to be about the mass of the fox. And so if you had the same amount of matter in each trophic level, they're going to be destroyed because the higher levels are just going to completely eat the lower levels. And so we need to have this state of balance. And also you can think about it in terms of energy. Okay, each level only has 10% of the energy available as the previous level. So if it only has 10% of the energy, it can only do 10% of the chemical reactions, have 10% of the growth, all of that good stuff. So those were the kinds of answers I was hoping to see on 1 through 8. Tomorrow I'll do videos on the other 2 because then the due date will have passed. And so hopefully I have everybody's by then. See you later.